G'day, my name is Matt Sharp and I'm from Sharp Property Buyers.
Here we go!
Real people, real community, real estate agents.
Let me introduce Matt Sharp. Matt is the founder and director of Sharp Property Buyers, which is an investment buyer's agent service on the Central Coast. Matt holds a real estate licence and is also a proud member of PIPA, the Property Investment Professionals of Australia, and is recognised as a qualified property investment advisor. Matt's experience and local market knowledge sets him apart from the rest. He knows every inch, corner and crevice of the Central Coast. In addition to his property expertise, Matt has great relationships with many of the local sales agents, tradespeople and services. It's a Help Me Buy Property, episode 4 of the podcast. Let me introduce your host, Craig Fisher. Craig Fisher with Matt Sharp. Matt, g'day mate, how you going?
G'day Craig, very well, thanks mate.
Thanks for coming today mate. So mate, just let's start, a bit about your story, tell us.
Thanks, mate. Well, look, grew up here on the Central Coast, moved around a little bit once I sort of turned 18. You know, I went up to Newcastle, lived up there for a couple of years playing rugby league.
Oh, yeah?
Went up to Queensland as well, played rugby league up there, and then come back to the Central Coast for a few years, and then lived abroad in New York for a short period as well in 2016. Cool. But, yeah, mate, grew up on the coast, obviously didn't always have property as a profession in my sights, but was certainly always interested from a very, very young age. I think I started saving for my first property at the age of around 17 or 18 with my brothers. Together we all had a joint savings account. And nice. After sort of 5 or 6 years, you know, we developed a pretty substantial nest egg there where we decided to, you know, I decided to commit and buy the property. One of my other brothers was living overseas at the time. He did what he wanted to do and the other brothers did some other things with business and whatnot, but managed to buy the first property at around 24, and ever since then, you know, just had a serious bug for this property industry that we're in. And I guess over the years continued to build my knowledge and build my own property investment portfolio, both here on the Central Coast and interstate, as well as obviously holding my previous position. And yeah, I guess the interest just continued to grow and you know, I became more aware of what other services were out there within the industry outside of a sales agent. And, you know, the buyer's agent thing certainly grabbed me, and it was something that I sort of explored and monitored probably for around 2 years prior to actually engaging to go and get my real estate license and then look to launch my business. So, yeah, I guess that's a little bit of a crash course of the last sort of 15 years, mate, really quickly in 50 seconds.
So tell me, the inspiration behind creating Sharp.
Look,
what was it that grabbed you? Was there a niche in the market you saw? Was it your experiences as a buyer with agents? What was the catalyst that got you to move forward to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. There wasn't just one thing. There was probably a few things. So I guess it's probably no surprise that, you know, for every good story with property investing or even experience with sales agents, you know, there's probably 10 horror stories, right? Yeah. Everyone's got a horror story from a sales agent that ripped them off or an investment that went really bad. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And even the investment stuff, just uneducated people investing, you know, from a property spruiker at a buy now or forever miss out property out the back of Queensland somewhere. And, you know, as I become more educated, I become more aware and understood that there were actually independent advisors within this space that were doing incredible things, right? Some of them are now my mentors and even friends, which I'm incredibly proud of.
Oh, that's cool.
But that's basically where it started for me. And I guess at the point there, I was a huge advocate for, you know, doing your own education. Like I used to just absorb podcasts. I'd listen to audiobooks. I'd read books. Like I've got, honestly, it's like a library at home with how many property books I've got, you know, from industry leaders here in Australia. But I guess I was huge on the education part, but I understand not everyone is that passionate about it. So they're not bothered. Like, it's just like, oh, mate, this guy told me this thing was going to, I know. For one of the biggest investments that you're going to make in your life, you know, whether it be $300,000, $500,000, sometimes $1 million investment, you know, a lot of people go into them pretty relaxed. And that was just a little bit astounding to me that, you know, you were getting, I guess, you know, you're getting guidance from someone that wasn't really independent to you. And from that, I guess the interest grew. And then I had a mentor within that investment space that basically said, Matt, I really think that you should be doing this. I think you'd be great at it. So I just decided to take the plunge. And I guess when I started, you know, the buyer's agent space, I mean, it's still very much in its infancy. But
absolutely it is.
Yeah. I mean, it was common and well known in Sydney, and it was well known within, you know, small investment market, I guess community groups, which I was aware of. But here on the Central Coast, like, no one else was doing it. I didn't know if it would work. I had no clue if it would work. Early on, you know, a lot of agents were intimidated by me and were unsure about the angle that I was coming from.
It's interesting, that, isn't it?
Yeah. There's nothing like there's no egos in real estate. But I guess so. It was I guess it was untrialed, so it was unmeasured for me. I couldn't leave my job.
So what were you before this?
And so I was working in a corporate role. So I was in there for over 10 years. I guess very secure job, whatever that means these days.
Yeah.
I was in a very comfortable position. I guess I had a decent salary, and it gave me some really, really good skills, like more on the project management side, that transitioned into my role now.
So let's talk about the transition of the role right now. So you've come from corporate, so your qualifications in this now, you're a licensed estate agent, or how far did we go? Because there's the member of Pippa here who I thought was your wife, but Pippa's not your wife. Pippa's one of the governing bodies. Plus, you're also got the advisory part as well. Just tell us a bit about that, mate.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm a Class 1 real estate holder, as anyone needs to be if they run their own company.
Yes.
So I hold that. Also, I'm a member of PIPA, who are the Property Investment Professionals of Australia, but I'm also recognised as a qualified property investment advisor. So that's some additional study that, you know, it isn't compulsory in this line of works, although I'm a big believer that it should be.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. So that's no small feat. You know, a huge amount of study and you know, assessments need to be handed in with that, and they obviously all get graded and marked. It's probably, you know, I think in terms of time frame, they usually recommend it around 2 years to allow 2 years of basically part-time study to become a QPIA. So
oh, wow. So it's not just a 3-month crash course online and away you go.
No. Yeah, it can take, I mean, you do it in your own time, but a guide is around 2 years. I had a certain goal to sort of do it within 12 months, and then my wife Jackie fell pregnant, and I thought, shit, I better get this done before the baby arrives. So I managed to squeeze it in about 6 months. So I was just very, very just hyper-focused just to get all the modules done, get through all the content and all the workbooks and whatnot.
Nothing like the motivation of a pregnancy, is it?
Oh, mate, I'll tell you, that is a line in the sand.
It is, absolutely.
But yeah, so obviously a QPIA, but in terms of the transition, you know, there were no, I guess, official accreditations that I carried from my last job, other than skill sets, you know, of talking to different people, understanding how, you know, to project manage situations. And certainly I think the biggest thing for me coming out of that corporate space and even my sporting background was just understanding and accepting that other people have other professions, and you're best just to leverage on those guys. So what I mean by that is, obviously within the buying space, you've got the sales agent who plays their role. You've got the buyer who plays their role. Then you've got your solicitor or conveyancer, your pest and build. So obviously I leverage.
Great analogy. Yeah, I like it.
I leverage on all of those guys, just like you do in the project management and just like you do in the sporting in a sporting arena as well, right? So you just have your team, and if you even want to extend on that, you know, you got your financial advisors. Obviously, I can't give financial advice, and then you have your accountant as well.
Yeah, it's always for information only, isn't it? Talk to that person.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, the corporate background definitely gave me that, but the corporate background also gave me a huge hunger to go and do something outside of that corporate space. I just wasn't overly fulfilled there. You know, in a big corporation that I was in, you don't always get look, you don't always get the accolades or the pay that reflects your work, whether that's really good or really bad. And sometimes if you're in a negative and toxic environment, you know, it can be a bit of a drag going to work. And
the old water cooler.
Yeah, it's torture.
Yeah.
So that stuff kicked me along to be like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I've been here over 10 years. Like, I can almost see my future when I'm 60 and I'm walking out that door or whatever. So yeah, and look, I mean, naturally I'm someone that's pretty, you know, I'm extremely driven and I'm always looking to try and better myself or, you know, look at new avenues, and I'm very ambitious. So yeah, I guess the corporate space just didn't fulfill those, those desires.
It was a nice stepping stone to where you are. So just loop back a little bit with me for a second. So just on the, you know, real estate license and PIPA, so you've actually, by the sound of it, taken the extra step. So I'm kind of taking it here that most buyers agents don't have that, or is that something that's they're going after now, or are you setting a new benchmark for buyer agents who are potentially listening to this podcast?
Yeah, look, good question. Look, I think, so first and foremost, not all buyers agents are qualified property investment advisors.
Yeah.
One, either they don't have an interest in becoming one. They don't need to be a QPIA to buy property for people. Right. They just need to hold that license, the real estate license. But if you're advising clients or people to invest in certain properties independently, I think you absolutely should be a qualified property investment advisor. I think it's a requirement, and it's something that PIPA are absolutely pushing for. Unfortunately, at the moment, you know, the Australian government don't have, you know, they're not regulating or there aren't any legislations around property advising. Yeah. So I think that, and I hope in the future that there is, so that people can get, you know, better guidance and I guess get the right guidance for their needs. So I should just probably touch on it a little bit more. So basically what it is, to be a member of PIPA and to be a QPIA means that you should absolutely hold the highest of standards. So with that, we obviously always work independently for our client. So there are no soft cash payments from builders, developers, sales agents, financial advisors, anyone. Yeah. We get paid solely by our client because they're the ones that we're advising towards.
The buyer.
They're the buyer.
The buyer. Yep.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And not only with that, you know, as part of our service, we need to provide, you know, property investment reports, which give you accurate market research, give you past performances, we really want to give our clients really thorough and deep understanding of, one, the area that we're recommending for them to buy in, and two, why it's going to be suitable for them. Because, look, when you become educated in this space, you realise that, number one, Smith Street might be a great investment for you, for Craig Fisher, but it might be terrible for me because my circumstances are different. We're at different ages.
Yes.
You might have 5 properties. This might be my first. You might want to have a development desire. I might want to buy something low maintenance, and the list goes on, right? So it's really about identifying what areas are going to suit our clients' needs best for their actual situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a selling agent myself, the one thing that I've seen over the last 15 years in real estate, so when I was listing and selling in Melbourne, that's where I noticed the emergence of the buyer agent. So it was very much a city thing. It was a Melbourne thing. It was a Sydney thing. But now that it's here on the Central Coast, and probably the last 2 years, there's been an emergence of a good handful of you. And in my experience from buyers agents from outer area, they're not always in tune with what's happening in the area, because I got to tell you, as a listing and selling agent, I'm not really in tune with what's happening in Sydney. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately for the vendors who we service in the selling arena, I think there's actually a bit of a disservice done by buyers agents coming from Sydney back this way and giving the wrong information about where the client should and shouldn't buy, because quite frankly, they don't know.
Yeah.
The Central Coast.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point that you raise. And, I've obviously got some colleagues in Sydney, and they'll leverage on my on-the-ground experience and my on-the-ground local knowledge. But I absolutely think you'd be doing your client a disservice if you're buying property in an area like the Central Coast here and you don't have intimate detail of the Central Coast and what it offers. And a lot of people that we help coming out of Sydney will call up, they'll book in a time and say, look, we want to move to the Central Coast. And I'll say, great. What areas are you thinking, or do you want to send me through some properties that you're considering to buy? They'll send me something at Umina, something at Wyong, and then something at Nora Head. And I'm like,
that's quite a large landscape, right there,
it's
isn't
massive,
it?
And they're like, oh, we've just picked these because they're close to the M1, for example.
Yeah.
It's just like those three suburbs, completely different demographics.
Yes.
You are going to have a completely different experience on the Central Coast in those three areas. Like, we really need to narrow it down. And I think just going back to what you're saying about the buyer's agents coming from out of area and getting their clients to buy here on the coast, they're also unaware of that. Just like me, I wouldn't buy in Sydney. I have no idea what's happening south of Carryong, or south of the Hawkesbury Bridge. So I don't even venture down there at all, for a whole range of reasons. But that probably being the first reason. I just don't have that intimate knowledge of what the difference is between being on the east of the bridge, the north on the bridge, south of the bridge. I'd have no idea.
Yeah, I'm all. And by the way, I'm all from anyone coming from other areas and doing other things. But I guess all I'm saying, Matt, is be informed.
Yeah, 100%.
When you get be informed, that's all I'm saying.
Yep.
So your buy agent services, are they just for the Central Coast, or are we further afield? And I'm also going to ask then about investment. So from the investment information, because it seems to be you've opened up a whole nother world that even I didn't know about there, mate.
Yeah. Good question. So I guess we have almost two services within our business, right? So the owner-occupier space, absolutely only focus on the Central Coast, like what we just touched on. If you're going to buy someone a home that they're going to live in, you really need to know the details of each area. That's what I think. But also, it goes without saying, do a little bit of investment stuff here on the Central Coast as well, provided that this area is going to work well for our client. Okay, and what I mean by that is, their risk appetite, their purchase price, their yield, what their overall strategy is. If that's aligned with the Central Coast, we'll buy investment properties here. But in terms of...
Are you getting a lot at the moment with the way pricing is?
Mate, we are actually. A lot of clients will come out of Sydney, or even local people that don't have the appetite or the risk appetite to want to invest interstate. They'd prefer to invest somewhere that they are a little bit familiar with.
Yeah, it's a backyard.
Yeah, I respect that. I do let them know that as a QPIA, we look at all markets across Australia, but if you're only comfortable to invest within your own area, let's try and do the best we can within this area.
With the budget you got. Sure.
Exactly. But in saying that, the Central Coast stacks up incredibly well, in certain areas from an investment standpoint. Obviously, halfway between Newcastle and Sydney, there's a huge amount of population growth here. I would hate to see the data now. I'm sure it's skyrocketed on the back of COVID. Yeah. Great infrastructure, very diverse economy, and then obviously you've got the lifestyle drivers, affordability.
Absolutely.
It goes on, right? But I guess outside of the Central Coast, we buy nationally for clients, because sometimes people will come to us with a $350,000 budget or a $550,000 budget, and it's just not possible to buy a high-performing asset in this area with that type of budget.
Not for $350,000.
No.
Is that a deposit right now?
We'd
be close, wouldn't we?
Some areas it is. But those types of investors, they shouldn't be discounted out of the property market, because we look at, when we're doing our in-house research, we look at the property market on a national level, and then we filter through those markets, and we try and identify the best areas that are going to work, the hardest and work the best for our clients. So,
and your clients' needs.
And the client's needs, which is critical.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, we're not just looking at data. We obviously probably the data and the research and trends and what's happening in the market, and where government spending's being injected and where private spending is, and all the normal drivers that you'd see within any sort of investment market. We look at all of that stuff, but we also have people on the ground, trusted relationships, which again are critical in the areas that we're buying. So we'll have property managers, in some cases some sales agents that we know within the industry, and in a lot of cases other buyers agents as well, doing on the ground stuff for us to say, Matt, stay away from John Street, that's no good, but this street three blocks away, Caroline Street or whatever, that's great.
Yeah.
So, it's about marrying up the data and what's happening, from an investment standpoint, as well as what's happening on the ground, to try and sort of get the best outcome for our clients. And those guys on the ground will do our walkthrough videos. They'll do everything that we need in order for us to feel comfortable. It's been very difficult to obviously fly interstate for the last nearly 18 months. So we've had to get a little bit more creative with how we sort of navigate our way through those markets.
That's an extraordinary level of detail that you're putting towards that. It really is.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, mate. And look, it's a huge investment for people, and
something you don't take lightly either, by the sound of it.
No, of course not. And I mean, look, I grew up on the Central Coast, which is it's given me great awareness of reputation and what people know.
Small place, the Central Coast, isn't it?
Exactly. So I guess I've always sort of had that view and mindset, and I very much understand that. The word travels, whether it's positive or negative. So for us, it's critical that we go through all of our checklists and we present all the information that we need to our clients, and ultimately they're feeling comfortable. And also for us, we want to make sure that they're going to get a good outcome, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely. All right. Well, so just final two things. Number one tip for your buyer.
Number one tip for the buyer. Anyone out there, I would say get educated if you have the desire to and the passion to. If you don't want to get educated, engage an independent professional to help you get a good outcome.
Yeah, great information.
I mean, look, when I was young, I didn't understand that not everyone wanted to understand the whole investing game and the whole property market thing. It's not everyone's cup of tea, which is fine, but I really think if you have the desire to absolutely educate yourself, but if you don't, leverage off a professional.
Absolutely.
I just see it too often, people just getting good outcomes. I mean, you wouldn't sell your house in today's market without engaging a good sales agent.
No, absolutely.
No,
absolutely not. No, absolutely. Look, and me, like, as a listing and selling agent, again, if I was to go outside this area, mate, I'd be straight on to someone else. Wouldn't be doing it myself, absolutely, that's for sure. And next hotspot for everyone wants to know the next spot. If there's one suburb they could chase?
Look, if there's one suburb they could chase, I would say, as Ben Kingsley from the Property Couch says, follow the money. So what I mean by that is, where is the government spending being spent? Where is private money being spent? Where is their jobs growth? And certainly where are those high-paying jobs as well? So, nearing the major capital cities. I will say at the moment we are investing in and around sort of the Moreton Bay area of Queensland, regional centre of Queensland, which we really like, is Toowoomba as well.
Good spot.
Yep. Also another regional town that we've really liked recently and had some, our clients have had great success is Bendigo in Victoria, and also parts of Adelaide as well. It's done very, very well over the last 24 months.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
What's going on over there?
Look, they've got the Tonsley University down there, the Tonsley Innovation Centre down there, which is groundbreaking for Australia in terms of startups and new sort of ideas, incredibly intelligent people working there. Obviously, they've got the major defence force down there as well as they have the space station too. So there's some big jobs down there. Right. And also on the back of COVID, they've benefited hugely because a lot of people would traditionally, they would basically educate themselves within Adelaide and maybe finish uni, and then they'd fly over and work in Melbourne or work in Sydney, right? But now from COVID, a lot of those people have now gone back home and they've got the high-paying jobs. They're now working from home, so it's also benefited there quite well. So, look, I will say, if you probably sat down here with another QPIA, he might have another he or she might have 4 or 5 other suburbs that they like, but for us and the research that we look at, they seem to stack up pretty well.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing, mate, and thanks for the chat. Much appreciated.
Of course. Thanks for having me, mate. Thank you.
Great to know you've tuned in to this episode of Let Me Introduce. That was buyer's agent Matt Sharp from Sharp Property Buyers. Matt knows how hard it can be to find the right property, whether it be your forever home or an investment. That's why Sharp Property Buyers exist. They are here to help you with all the complicated steps like searching, inspecting and negotiating so you don't have to. They are here on the ground to do the legwork for you. Contact Matt and his team at Sharp Property Buyers today to help you find your next property at www.sharpproperty.com.au. To listen back to all the episodes, the playlist can be found on iTunes, Spotify and Google Play. So let's keep it moving. My number one takeaway from this interview that can be applied to the real estate place. Buyers should be represented by an independent professional when purchasing a property, just as the seller should be represented by an independent professional when selling. Thanks for tuning in to the Let Me Introduce podcast. And remember, if you've got any questions about buying or selling real estate, feel free to reach out and give me a call on your preferred communication platform. Till next month, let me introduce real people, real community, real estate agents, your host, Craig Fisher.